Welcome to the Art Lab. In today's video we're going to take a look at creating a Māori Patu. You're probably wondering, hey Andy, what is a Patu? It was a club that was used for close range hand-to-hand combat. These days it's used as a gift. I've teamed up with two amazing creatives to create this Patu. One being Kauri gum lamps and the other Jo Waititi. So you have to think of this project as a 3-stage relay race. I'm doing the first bit, which is creating the silicone mould. Kauri gum lamps is doing phase 2, where he's going to fill it with swamp curry, which is 30 to 40,000 years old, and then hand it across to Jo, and he's got the hard job of all that bloody sanding. But as my mate Arnie always says,
teamwork makes the dream work when making a Patu.
I was given the dimensions roughly of what this Patu should be in the size, and so I sketched that up in my CAD program and then went about creating what that mould would look like and onto the mould box. Definitely was some challenges along the way with this project. So the first of those being, how can I print this when it won't fit on my print bed? And so this is where the Bamboo Studios split function comes in handy. So I was able to split the Patu into two and be able to join it together so that I could print them two parts and stick it together for the rest of the mould. A couple of months ago I was able to upgrade my 3D printer, and now I've got a Bamboo Labs A1 and this thing is amazing. I struggled for a few years with my Ender 3, but the upgrade to the Bamboo is just game changer. Once I've printed the two parts, it's just a matter of putting those together, and I've got my solid Patu to make as my master mould. And so this is what we're casting in silicone so that I can then pass it on to Kauri gum lamps to do their next step. Right, I've just cleaned up my sheet of Perspex, and this is what's going to be the base layer for the mould. This is probably my biggest mould so far to date, so it's going to be interesting to see how it all fits on and how it works. I've got a few ideas on how to attach the 3D printed mould casing so that the silicone mould doesn't leak. Alright, so I've got my mould together, that's all clipped in there. Whoops. Like that. Should be nice and straight and tight. So not that it matters much because these are going to be sanded down, but I thought it was a good idea to just put a clear coat of acrylic on the surfaces of these Patu, and that does a couple of things. It just guarantees, I guess, the silicone's not touching the plastic and it doesn't react in a funny way, even though PLA should cure quite well with silicone. It also just gives a little bit of shine, even if that shine's going to be sanded off. Now we just need to put this around here, and we have another challenge on how to stick this down and also prevent it leaking. So what I'm going to do is put some silicone around the edges here. Make sure these are all flat as possible. All the smaller molds that I do, I 3D print a base for it, and that works quite well. Because this is a lot bigger, then I didn't really want to waste all that material, so I used a sheet of acrylic as my base, and so this is where it's a bit harder to get the different surfaces to stick. So I thought using some silicone chalk would be the way to do it, and then using this plasticine to go around the edges just as a bit of extra protection. But yeah, wait and see what happens. This is the silicone I got. I actually got it from Amazon Australia. It was free shipping from there, so it worked out cheaper than anything I could get here in New Zealand, and I'm quite impressed with how it turned out. It's 30A silicone, which means it's got a little bit of flex to it, but it's quite solid, and I'm actually very impressed with the silicone, better than any other silicones I've used in the past. According to the instructions, you didn't need to degas the silicone, but since I've got a vacuum chamber anyway, I decided to do that, and yeah, look at all that air coming out, so it's probably well worth doing it to get some of those bubbles out of the silicone. One of the things with silicone, it's very much like water, and it will find its way to get through anything, and unfortunately that's what's happened here. You can see a little bit of leak down the end there. I tried to plug that up with some more plasticine, but that didn't seem to work, and in the end I just had to kind of give up trying to plug any leaks, and this is the end result. Okay, let's try take two, and hopefully this time it works. I've switched to glass, so I'll give that a go, and I'm going to be using a heat gun to seal it. So clean this up as much as possible, and we won't be using the plasticine or the silicone under the mould. One technique that I found when people were using large moulds and sticking it to either glass or acrylic was to make a small batch of the silicone that you're going to be making the mould of, and effectively paint that on around the bottom of the mould and leave that overnight to cure, and that's what I did here. I went through and painted this on. It does seem like that a glue gun is the tool of choice a lot of people use to really stick their moulds to another piece of material, whether that's melamine or acrylic or glass. One of the forums, a lot of people recommended not putting the mould onto glass because the silicone could stick to it, kind of suction to it, and it's hard to take off, but in this case only a small amount of silicone is going to be sticking to the surface here, so I used this because I had it on hand. Because these are pretty big moulds, the first mould I calculated to be about 1 kg of silicone, and then the second one, which is the square one, which you'll see a little bit later, that one was 1.5 kgs, and so what I ended up doing is chopping up little bits of the failed pour that I had, and this will help increase the volume so I can use less of the new silicone and use some of this old to bolster up and still have the same effect. Now it's time for the big test. Will it leak or not? So a little bit apprehensive here because the silicone's expensive. I didn't want too much of it to leak out again, and just pouring this in and filling it up and crossing my fingers. I did have a slight leak just on the join where the 3D mold pieces join together, and I was able to take care of that just with the glue gun. So in the other mold I actually painted on the small batch of silicone and let that cure overnight. So in between those two seams, painted it on and then ball clipped that together. And success! Woohoo! No leaks. So I was very happy to find that this cured with no leaks. And then the next part, which was a bit of a struggle in some areas, is just getting it apart. So I just had to first remove the glue, and I used some isopropyl alcohol for that. So spray it on, let it sit for a couple of minutes, and that must eat at the glue or something. It softens it up so that the glue comes off really easily. So once I can get this glue off, it's just a matter of prying off these next little bits of the mold housing, and they come off pretty easily after that. The next challenge though is to get this mold off the glass. I use glass here. I did have some people on Reddit say, yeah, don't use glass, but luckily this one didn't have too much of that silicone touching the glass and came off pretty well. So now we're on to the final cleanup phase, and essentially this is just going around with a knife, making sure that I can get as close as possible to that main mold. That way I can get in with the next tool to do that bit. If you've made it this far, thanks very much for watching. I do all sorts of things in my art lab, and so if you're inclined to do anything with art or 3D printing, then give me a follow, and if you like this video so far, hit that thumbs up so that I can get the algorithm to push it out to more people. So we're nearly at the final stage. So I've got the mold out, and this is where I'm using this tool, which is actually a cuticle cutter. So you use it normally on like your fingers, for cuticles on your fingers, to sort of clear off any dead skin and that sort of thing, but it makes an excellent tool for cleaning up these silicone molds. So this tool is amazing really. It's just like a hot knife through butter, and it cuts away all that loose excess silicone that's managed to seep out. And here we have it, the finished mould. So this mould is the round handle patu, and it's going to be filled with Kauri gum and resin, and that's going to be done by the guy at Kauri Gum Lamps, Cam, and then it's going to be passed on to Jo Waititi, who's going to do the finishing touches. So I'm going to get this in the courier now and up to Whangarei to Cam, who's going to do the next stage. So I'm passing my baton on in this nice relay of creating this amazing patu.
Kia ora TikTok, welcome to my second unboxing video of the week. Can anybody guess what these are? Silicone molds. All the bros keep asking, how much for some Kauri gum? How much for some swamp Kauri? I want to make a patu. And then they fade like Homer into a bush as soon as I tell them the price. So this is my way of getting them cost effective for the everyday person. Shout out to Andy's Art Lab. He really went above and beyond to make this happen for you guys. Go check out his TikTok. He makes some really cool stuff. So I'm going to make a gum patu in this one and a swamp Kauri offcut with some gum and another offcut in this one. River resin style. They will be the most pakiha patus ever made.